5 years ago today, my life completely changed. I was 16 years old, looking up at a blue sky, paralyzed from the waist down. And honestly, every year since has taught me something different about what it means to live with a disability, and just to live in general. Some lessons were hard, some I'm still learning, but here are 5 that I wish someone had told me when I was 16 on October 14th, 2020. Lesson number 1, comparison. This is something that I am still struggling with, honestly. I recently started therapy, and something that I've kind of discovered deep down is that I feel like everyone else is perfect, but I am not. So this is very much still something I'm trying to teach myself. During the very beginning of my journey, I felt like my clock had stopped. And what I mean by that is that I felt like I was still 16 inside, living in a 19, 20-year-old body. Time was moving around me, but I felt like I was at a standstill. And that was obviously hard, seeing what everyone else was up to, and I was just at home. Luckily, it feels like my clock started again about a year or 2 ago, but I still struggle with feeling envious of people that I perceive as less paralyzed than me, less disabled, people who got to recover function where I didn't, people that got in car accidents but were able to walk away with just mental implications. That kind of comparison can consume you if you let it. Lesson number 2, redefining priorities. And I don't mean just picking new priorities or forgetting about your old priorities. Overall, I just want you to know that you can still have everything you want from life. You are in control. And it might not initially feel like that when you're in the hospital and someone's wiping your butt and you feel like you've lost every shred of autonomy. That is hard, that is understandable. But whether you're a higher level quad and still need help with some things, or you're like me who is getting more independent as more time goes on, you can still have control over other parts of your life. There are ways to adapt nearly everything. And it can be so easy to go online and hear tons of horror stories about things happening to other disabled people, about inaccessibility, about hiring discrimination, about airlines damaging our chairs, about how expensive some of this adaptive equipment can be, which are things to consider. But if you were the type of person to like traveling, to like trying new things for the first time, to like doing sports, the easiest thing would be for you to just stay at home in fear of all of these what ifs. But the best thing you can do for yourself is to look back at your priorities, who you are as a person. It's also true that you're different now than you were before a spinal cord injury. But a love for travel and a love for sports and a love for ABC, those things do not go away. They just change. If you want something, it could be anything, but if you want something like traveling for yourself, there is a way. Maybe you need to start a little easier first, like traveling somewhere with a friend and work your way up. But you can get there if you want to. There's a saying, and it is a little corny, but it goes like this: if there's a wheel, there's a way. And that's just to say that if you want something, if you want it enough to do the research, to prepare, to practice, you can have it. Things are different now, but not everything has to be. Lesson number 3, community. It's something that we need, but unfortunately a lot of us don't have for a long time after spinal cord injury. It's really hard to keep pre-existing friendships after something so big happens. So a lot of people, unfortunately, end up losing their friends, which is kind of the case for me as well. And this can be for a lot of reasons I probably don't even fully understand. A lot of us just can't go back to the same dynamic. We can't spontaneously just hang out for a long time. A lot of us might be stuck in our homes or rehab due to initial transportation problems, inaccessibility, or uncomfortableness navigating you as a newly disabled person, especially if you were young like I was. But losing your friends does not change the fact that we are still, at the end of the day, very social creatures and we crave that connection. Luckily, I found mine through posting online and becoming friends with other disabled creators. But I'm also blessed to have found my local adaptive sport organization, which led me to my best friend. Spinal cord injury is pretty rare, affecting about 1 in 54 million people, I think. And most of those people are middle-aged men, which is not really my demographic. So finding my best friend who is so similar to me was literally life-changing. And in these conversations with each other, I hear a lot of the same sentiments being echoed, like how we can fully relate to each other, sharing very similar experiences, being able to share embarrassing stories. We all have them. A lot of times this is about bowel and bladder stuff, or about how we feel approaching our life days. A lot of times we can create a deeper bond we just can't make with able-bodied friends anymore. They can teach you new tricks. They can push you beyond what your able-bodied friends might know how to. They might laugh at things that your able-bodied friends might not find funny. So even though they can be a lot harder to find, these kinds of bonds are worth looking for. Lesson number 4, gratitude. Now, I've always been a little bit pessimistic, or what I like to call realistic, and a little bit aversive to perkiness. So if you're anything like me, it might be really hard to find anything to be grateful for right after your spinal cord injury, or any trauma in your life, that is. But without finding what you are thankful for, you will also miss out on the joys of life too. I always say shit happens in life, and my spinal cord injury was a very good example of this. But focusing on fault or the hypothetical prevention of if I had just done this will eventually just totally cloud you in negativity. Looking at the situation objectively, I could have died that day, and you probably could have too. But we didn't. We're here, and I'm making memories that I wouldn't have had the chance to if I had. I've had the pleasure of trying adaptive sports and experiences because there are foundations, organizations, and people out there that care about you and that care to bring you as close to equal as they can. About 2 years after I was paralyzed, I was traveling in the New York City subway station for the very first time. And if you know anything about the New York City subway, it is that a lot of the stations are not accessible. In fact, about 75% of the stations do not have elevators to the platform, which is a problem if you're in a wheelchair and you don't know what you're doing. So naturally, I got off on a station that was not accessible. We were late, we were trying to get somewhere, and we were looking at least 2 flights of stairs, if not 3. But a stranger was there and saw me, and she carried my chair up all of those flights of stairs. And then she just said, "You're welcome," and left and carried about her day. I have been at bus stops where the bus ramp was not working, and I've had people that were at that bus stop with me, strangers, speak up for me about how it was wrong and that it should be fixed and that they need to call another bus to pick me up. All of this is to say that there is a lot of bad in the world, but there is also a lot of good. And it can be very hard to remember that, but the thought of forgetting it is even more sad. And finally, lesson number 5, resilience. I saved this one for last because it feels finalizing. A lot of people have called me resilient for going through what I did back then and how I'm showing up now. And objectively, I know what they mean because on the other side of the spectrum, there are people out there that have also had a spinal cord injury, but they have not passed the stage of being stuck at home, not seeking out new experiences, not recovering emotionally. And I am very privileged to say that this is not me. I don't know if this is controversial to say, but October 14th, 2020 was not the worst day of my life. It was the second worst day of my life, but I think my previous experiences hardened me to the realization that using a wheelchair is not the end of the world. Was it still traumatizing? Yes, but life goes on, and if you don't go with it, it will leave without you. The term Life Day refers to the anniversary of our spinal cord injury. It's the day that we could have died, but instead we're reborn, like a chapter closing while another one just starts. This was my 5th life day, and I don't know where my next 5 will take me, but I do know that I am going to keep living them, and I think you should too. Bye!